Hello, Southwest Florida homeowners and homebuyers. Welcome to the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast, your go-to source for navigating the vibrant real estate landscape of our beautiful region. I'm your host, Kevin Tremmel, a local real estate agent, leader, and investor here in Southwest Florida. On this podcast, we bring you insights from best in the business, top-notch real estate professionals, seasoned agents, and experts in everything from homeowners insurance to mortgages, maintenance, and repairs. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer or a seasoned homeowner, we've got you covered with tips, strategies, and valuable insights to make your journey in Southwest Florida's real estate market a breeze. Get ready to unlock the doors to successful home ownership. This is the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast, where we demystify the process, share insider knowledge, and ensure you're well equipped to make informed decisions. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. Today, we have a very special guest with us. We have Danielle Matthews with Empire Appraisals in Southeast Florida. Danielle has 22 years of appraisal experience. And Danielle, unlike other appraisers, her focus is private appraisals. And we'll dive into this in a second, what that means and what that looks like. But welcome to the show, Danielle.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, why don't we get started? Who's Danielle and who is Empire Appraisals? How did you get into, the appraisal world, and how do you like it?
I love what I do. I've been an appraiser for 22 years. Prior to that, I was a realtor, and I just got tired of showing houses and spending my weekends running people around and them buying from the neighbor who had a for sale by owner. I was young, and I just said, you know what? I'd rather get paid every time I walk into a house. So I became an appraiser, and I've never looked back.
Awesome. That's not a bad reason for transitioning, right? So, and then Empire, you founded that straight out of the gate 22 years ago, or is that something you kind of got some experience under like a different company and then you ventured out on your own later, or how did that look?
So when you become an appraiser, you're a trainee and you work for a state cert for 2 to 3 years. So I did 3 years with a certified. And then when I went on my own, everybody used to joke and say, Danielle's running an empire over there, because I always had my own clients. And so that's how I was founded, Empire Appraisals. Nice.
I like where the name came from. That's awesome. So Danielle, can you explain to us kind of the different types of appraisals, right? An appraisal isn't just an appraisal, right? I mean, there's pre-listing appraisals, divorce appraisals, estate planning appraisals, lender appraisals. Can you kind of just briefly shed some light on like the different types and how they might be different in certain things?
Sure. So a lot of people have the misconception that a lending appraisal is different from a private appraisal, or a refinance appraisal is different from a purchase appraisal. An appraisal is an appraisal. The value is the value. It's just the type of form needed, the content for the appraisal, like an estate appraisal requires certain documentation to be included from all the sales regarding transfers for 5 years. And that's not something that a lending appraisal requires. So you have to have the knowledge to know, the difference, what's required of the documentation, the IRS versus Fannie Mae. Divorce appraisals, that's one of my specialties. Those are typically done with the date of divorce filing. So a lot of times people come to me, say 2025, but they filed for divorce in February of 23. So the effective date is retrospective, and it goes by, the value at that time. And that's when the assets were considered to be divided. So that's the different types. And there's different forms. There's a multifamily form, there's a condo form, there's a single family form, but it's just about the information required for the end user.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I mean, as far as the value goes, that doesn't change. It's just more the information on the actual form or on the actual appraisal that might look different between the different appraisals. And then obviously the nuances that you described of, a divorce appraisal is retrospective and, things like that. So, and then, so you said you mostly focus. You also said you do lender appraisals, and just to clarify for the audience, that's where a lender will hire an appraiser to make sure that the money that they're lending on said property is actually worth what the property's worth, is enough or not more than what the property's worth. But you also do a lot of private appraisals where any private consumer would just hire you. Why would a homeowner or a buyer or even a real estate agent like myself want to hire you somewhere in the real estate transaction process? Like, why do people do that?
So what I find is that people come to me that are looking to list their house. Maybe they've chosen an agent, maybe they haven't. Usually they're at least in the process of interviewing. And so I know the agents go in and they'll say, I think that we should list your house at 750. And another one will come in and say, we should start at 775. And the homeowner can get a little confused of, well, what is it? Is it 775? Well, it's a marketing strategy. And so they'll bring in me to tell them the realistic, this is what you can expect if your house goes under contract, let's say in the next, 60 to 90 days. Mm-hmm. The pre-listing appraisals, I focus on not just the closed sales, but also what's competing with you right now. I let you know the list to sale ratios. Concessions are a huge thing right now. So you're not surprised when you get your offer and they're asking for 3% back in closing costs. The pre-listing appraisal kind of prepares you for what to expect with the current market. Are you competing with 30 listings in your building? Or are there, none in your building and you're going to be the only one? Those kinds of things are important to know, because obviously if there's 30 condos for sale in your building or 30 homes in your subdivision and you need to sell in the next 60 days, you need to be aware of that and what the condition of your house is versus the other houses without you having to go and tour all those houses.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of interesting things you said there. I mean, I always tell people, like, one thing that I think I'm pretty strong at is CMAs, which is comparative market analysis, but just for the audience, just because I studied like finance in college. So like I actually like doing those and stuff. But I always tell people, like, I'm not a state certified licensed appraiser that has however many hours you guys have to do in training. And it is confusing because sometimes you'll, like in this market, I don't know how it is on your coast, on the East Coast, but we're definitely in a buyer's market, right? There might be some pockets here and there that are really high desired, like school zones where we might still be a little bit in a seller's market. And it is confusing for sellers when they interview 2 to 3 agents and every agent has a different number. And then it's obviously even more hard and confusing when my number tends to be lower because, like, I'm realistic, right? Like perfect example, I have a listing right now, and in this subdivision, now granted, this is a very big subdivision, but there's 150 single family homes for sale right now. And in the subdivision, there has been 4 closings in 6 months. So we priced this like pretty much one of the lowest homes because, it's all like cookie cut, like they all pretty much are the same, right? So we priced when we went live, pretty much one of the lowest in the whole neighborhood. And the other realtor that I was interviewing against was like $50,000-$60,000 higher. I still got the listing because data doesn't lie, but it's just tough right now, especially like in a like shifting market and things like that. So yeah, I mean, and you're seeing that more and more, obviously, like in the last couple of years when we were in a seller's market, like nobody did a pre-listing appraisal, right? Everybody's just like, 500, 550, doesn't matter, it'll sell anyway, right? But now, like, homes or listings are expiring, listings are sitting a little longer. Some agents might not be as strong in doing CMAs. And I mean, you're seeing that more and more where agents want the help of appraisers. That's something I haven't seen like in the last 3 to 4 years. So that's definitely interesting. And then one of the things I also oftentimes get asked, or when I do listing presentations, homeowners will come to you and they say, hey, we did new kitchen faucets and we did new bathroom fixtures for $1,000. I'm sure that'll increase the value by $5,000 or $10,000, right? And we did these nice new blinds, right? And like all these things, right? So one of the biggest questions I had for you today was, can you shed some light on, from your perspective, right, as an appraiser, what actually increases the value of someone's property and what basically gives homeowners like the biggest return on investment?
So before I come out to a property, I always ask the client on the phone, how many bedrooms and bathrooms do you have? Do you have impact windows? Do you know how old your roof is? Have you done any renovations? And some of them will come back with things like, I painted, I put new bath fixtures in, I changed the ceiling fans. And I'm just like, yeah, those aren't upgrades.
Yeah.
So upgrades to an appraiser and upgrades that bring you value: your kitchen, your bathrooms, your impact windows, your roof. The age of your roof is a huge deal. I'm sure everybody knows now what's going on with the insurance companies. And, you got that tile roof that's 28 years old versus the house down the street that it's 15 years old. The insurance company is going to make you change that tile roof sooner than later. And so that's a big expense. And if you aren't prepared for that, you need to know, what to expect in the next year or two, especially as a first-time home buyer. So those are the things that give you the most value. The type of flooring, it's kind of irrelevant, but consistent floors throughout, that's kind of a big deal. It's just a more aesthetically pleasing look. The color that you paint your rooms doesn't really matter, but when you go to resell your home, that bright pink little girl's room and the blue room and the yellow room and the red dining room, those things can be a little bit of a turnoff to a buyer.
Right.
So those things don't matter.
You might not, like, as an appraiser, that this doesn't like really impact the value of the home, but a buyer might be turned off from it. So that's really also two different things where, like, does it really increase the value? Because you can just paint over it, or decrease the value, sorry, because you can paint over it, but a buyer might see it in a different light, right? So that's kind of important to know as well.
Right, yeah. Right. So it's your big ticket items.
Yeah.
The kitchen and the bathrooms, the roof and the windows.
Yeah. Okay. And so you said type of flooring, less important as long as it's uniform. And then how about, I'm just like curious about this, as far as like kitchen's a good example, only to a certain extent too, right? Like, so for example, what I'm getting at is like, so let's say somebody does a new kitchen and they do a $30,000 Home Depot remodel, right? Completely $30,000 Home Depot, good quality, but obviously there's more expensive, versus like someone does like an $80,000 custom cabinet job, like everything's custom, level 6 granite. Like, do you increase the value on your appraisal, like pretty much dollar for that, or does it kind of get diminishing returns after a while, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So you don't want to over improve, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to know what your market expects for your house, whether that be your price point or just where you live, right? So, for example, if you are in $1 million house, you would expect solid surface counters, you would expect paneled cabinetry. You're not expecting to come in there and see mica, just basic. You don't want to under improve, but you don't want to over improve. So again, you're in $1 million house, pretty much everybody has a custom kitchen and custom to them, right? Those kinds of things are particular to the homeowner. But if you're going to be selling, like I always tell people, if you're renovating and you're going to be selling in the next, let's say 5 years, don't renovate to your style, renovate to market standards, right? And how do I know what market standards are? Go take a walk through Floor and Decor. Go take a walk through any design center and you kind of get an idea.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But that's a tough thing too, because, in 5 years, things might be totally, what I'm seeing, like when I started real estate, it was just all the, grays and whites and that. And I'm seeing more and more like natural materials, like kind of more like stone flooring, like natural color cabinets are coming back, that kind of stuff. That's tough. 5 years might be might be totally different, but I get what you're saying. And then are there things that, like renovations and like big capital improvements aside, but are there like little things where like a homeowner could do to increase the value from an appraisal standpoint, or do you really not like, look at like little things like that? So for example, like, I don't know, remulching the flower beds in the front, right? I mean, is that something like you even look at or even care about no, not really. Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, people will
Yeah.
tell me, oh, I want to do a pre-listing appraisal, but I haven't painted my living room yet, or I
Right.
haven't. So I'm just like, those things don't matter. I don't even care if
Yeah.
you clean your house before I
Yeah.
come over.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like that's where a lot of people have like the misconception where like the difference between like what you do, where it's like an appraisal, and then like getting the house show ready for like listing or for like showing appointments, right? Like those are kind of two very different things, I
Yeah.
feel like. But then, so earlier you said you focus on, or like one of your big specialties is divorce appraisals, right? Is a divorce appraisal something that is mandatory in every divorce, or is that something people that are involved in a divorce choose to do? Or can you kind of shed some more light on that, like who obtains those appraisals and why?
So it's, I don't know if they're mandatory, but
Yeah.
I know that if it's an amicable divorce and you both go in and you say, yeah, our house is worth 500 and we agree to that, then it typically wouldn't be ordered. But,
Hmm.
it's not usually that simple.
Yeah.
So the husband usually says, it's worth 700 and the wife says, no, it's not. It's worth 550 because she's keeping it.
Yeah.
And it typically goes by the date of divorce filing, typically.
Hmm.
And so it's usually a retrospective appraisal. When I'm hired for divorce work, my number one question is always, who is my client? So there are times that I work for both the husband and the wife. And then there's times that I work for just one party. I'm
Hmm.
hired by either the homeowner or the attorney. Either one is fine. And whoever hires me always wants it to be the lowest or the highest.
Yeah, of course.
And it doesn't, it doesn't influence the appraisal either way. I mean, I'm neutral. I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care who has more vested. I don't care who paid more bills. That's
yeah,
irrelevant to me.
yeah.
So my big question is who I'm working for, because I need to know who I can talk to. If I
Mhm.
only work for the husband, I can only talk to the husband and the husband's attorney regarding any questions about the appraisal. The wife is not privy. She cannot ask me questions. I cannot send her a copy.
Mhm.
So it's just defining my end user.
Right, right. Okay, interesting. And for people that oftentimes investors and like prospective buyers, obviously the buyers require financing, appraisals mandatory. A lot of investors get appraisals, things like that. But so we talked a lot about sellers and how they can kind of, improve the value of their appraisal. Now for buyers, because I mean, I've seen a lot of appraisals and it does take some time to kind of, I mean, they're not the easiest thing in the world to read and interpret if you've never bought a home before, right? So maybe you can shed some light on like what are some like red flags maybe on an appraisal that might signal some issues, for any like buyers or investors listening. Like what are some of those things looking like?
Well, one thing I wanted to touch on is there is a lot more appraisal waivers happening nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when an appraisal waiver happens, they don't get a full appraisal. They just kind of do, it's like a Zillow kind of a thing. And as long as, the purchase price falls into that range, the bank will lend the money. I always recommend that a buyer gets their own appraisal. If the bank is just going to do a quick CMA and say, yeah, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen too many times where somebody, it should have maybe fallen to the lower end of the neighborhood and it sold,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it was a $500,000 house and it sold for 530. If you are in a position where, you bought that house at 530 and 2 years later your job transfers and you can't sell it for what you were into it for,
Yeah.
it would have been worth it to spend $500 on a full appraisal to know, did I actually get a good deal? When people were bidding up on houses and just give me a house because I need a house, you get into something that you're not really aware of. Things like the roof age, the were there any water damage inside? I mean, I always tell people on pre-listing appraisals what they need to do to prepare the house to sell it and not have any red flags to the appraiser. So that's things like, prior ceiling stains. Oh yeah, your air conditioner leaked on the second floor into the first floor. Oh, we fixed that 2 years ago. You need to get rid of that water stain. You need to get rid of that peeling popcorn. You need to get rid of anything that looks like, is there water damage? Was there water damage? What happened? Anything that's, I have a couple loose shingles. You should maybe fix that before the appraiser comes out and makes a red flag for an additional roof inspection, stuff like that.
Yeah. So it sounds like the same things that would apply to a seller increasing their value obviously would be, if they don't do it, would be red flags for a buyer, right? Like roof age, water, maybe AC age, like water heater, like the big mechanical items of the home, obviously. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, good, Danny. I want to thank you for your time here today. Obviously, we will link all of your contact information down below. But if someone wants to learn a little bit more about the services that you offer, maybe talk to you about a pre-listing appraisal, divorce appraisals, estate planning appraisals, buyer appraisals, whatever it may be, where would be a good place for someone to start?
My website is appraiserdanny.com, DANI. Okay. Same on Instagram. On Facebook, I'm Empire Appraisals, Inc.
Okay.
And my phone number is 954-263-1312.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for your time. I definitely learned a lot and hopefully can be a little bit better prepared for my next conversation with a seller or buyer. So thank you for that.
Okay. Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Bye, Danny. Thanks.
Bye.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I hope you enjoyed our discussions and gained valuable knowledge to enhance your home ownership journey here in Southwest Florida. A big thank you to our incredible guests and of course to you, our listeners, for joining us. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, or if you'd like to connect, feel free to reach out. You can find us on Instagram at Kevin Tremmel _real estate, on Facebook at Kevin Tremmel Real Estate, or visit our website, kevintremmel.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback is crucial and we're always eager to hear from you. Until next time, this is Kevin Tremmel, your host, signing off. See you on the next episode.